I never thought I'd see him standing on my porch like that. 20 years. That's how long it had been since I packed my life into boxes and drove away from the house we'd shared for 32 years. 20 years since I'd chosen myself over waiting. And now, here he was, holding a bouquet of daisies, my favorite, though I was surprised he remembered, with tears in his eyes and words I'd waited half my life to hear. "I was wrong," he said. His voice cracked like old wood. "About everything. I'm so sorry." I stood there in the doorway of my little cottage, the afternoon sun warm on my shoulders, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even sadness. Just a quiet, settled kind of peace that I'd worked hard to build. The peace he was now asking me to disturb. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just looked at this man, this stranger, wearing my husband's aged face, and realized that his apology had arrived 2 decades past the expiration date. I'd grieved this marriage. I'd buried it. I'd planted flowers over its grave and watched them bloom season after season. And now he wanted me to dig it all back up. "Robert," I said, quietly, my voice steadier than I expected. "You should have come 20 years ago." I could see the hope drain from his face, but I didn't feel guilty. Not anymore. Guilt was something I'd carried for too many years, thinking I wasn't enough, wasn't patient enough, wasn't loving enough to make him see me. But I'd learned something in these 20 years of freedom. His blindness was never my fault. Some regrets come too late. And that's a lesson I'd paid dearly to learn. Let me take you back to the beginning, because every ending starts somewhere, doesn't it? I met Robert Miller in 1968 at a church picnic on a Sunday afternoon that smelled like cut grass and potato salad. I was 23 years old, working as a secretary at the county courthouse, living with my parents and saving up for my own apartment. He was 26, just back from Vietnam, with serious eyes and a quiet way about him that made me feel calm. My mother said he was a good man. Steady, reliable, the kind of man who would provide. And she was right about that, I suppose. Robert did provide. He got a job at the manufacturing plant 2 weeks after we started courting, and he kept that job for 43 years. He never missed a day of work, never came home drunk, never raised his hand to me. By the standards of the women in my mother's generation, I'd hit the jackpot. We got married in 1969, in the same church where we'd met. I wore my mother's wedding dress, altered to fit my smaller frame. Robert wore a suit he'd borrowed from his brother. We didn't have much, but we had plans, dreams. Or at least I thought we did. Those first few years weren't bad. We rented a little apartment above the hardware store on Main Street. Robert worked the day shift, and I kept working at the courthouse until I got pregnant with our first baby. That's just what you did back then. The man worked, the woman kept the home, and nobody questioned it much. I had my daughter Jennifer in 1971. She was 7 pounds, 3 ounces of pure joy, with Robert's dark hair and my mother's nose. I remember thinking, as I held her for the first time, that this was what I was meant for. This was my purpose. Robert seemed happy too, in his quiet way. He'd come home from work, kiss my cheek, hold the baby for a few minutes, then settle into his recliner with the newspaper. It was a rhythm, a routine. And I told myself that this was what love looked like after the honeymoon phase: comfortable, predictable, safe. Our son Michael came along in 1974. 2 kids, 3 years apart, the perfect American family. We'd saved enough by then to buy a small house on Maple Street, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a backyard big enough for a swing set. I planted roses along the front walk and hung curtains I'd sewn myself in every window. I was happy. Or I thought I was. Maybe they're the same thing when you don't know any different. The bedroom grew quiet too. Intimate moments became rare, then obligatory, then almost non existent. I told myself it was normal. We were getting older, we had kids, we were tired. But late at night, lying next to a man who felt like a stranger, I wondered if other women felt this lonely in their own beds. The children grew up the way children do, faster than seems possible. Jennifer went to college in 1989, got a degree in nursing, married a kind man named David. Michael followed 2 years later, studied business, moved to Arizona for work. They called on Sundays, visited on holidays, and built their own lives like they were supposed to. And suddenly, it was just Robert and me again. Just like the beginning, except nothing like it at all. I thought, maybe foolishly, that this would be our second chance, that without the distraction of raising children, we might rediscover each other. I imagined conversations over coffee in the morning. Maybe we'd travel a little, take walks, learn who we'd become in all those years of being parents. But Robert didn't want a second chance at us. He wanted things to stay exactly as they'd always been. He went to work, came home, ate dinner, watched television, went to bed. Day after day, week after week, year after year. I was part of the routine, like the recliner or the coffee maker. Necessary but unremarkable. I started to understand that I'd been invisible for a very long time. There was no great betrayal, no affair, no gambling problem or secret addiction, nothing I could point to and say, this is why I'm unhappy. And somehow that made it worse. How do you explain to people that you're drowning in a marriage where everything looks fine from the outside? I tried to talk to him about it. I really did. One evening in 1998, I made pot roast, his favorite, and I asked him if he was happy, if he ever wanted more from life, from us. He looked at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "We have a good life, Catherine," he said. "House is paid off. Kids are doing well. I don't know what more you want." "I want you to see me," I said quietly. "I want to matter to you." He got uncomfortable then, the way he always did when feelings came up. "You're my wife," he said, like that answered everything. "Of course you matter." But I didn't feel like I mattered. I felt like the furniture, appreciated in an abstract way, but not really noticed unless I was missing. That conversation didn't change anything. If anything, Robert seemed annoyed that I'd brought it up at all. He started staying later at work, picking up extra shifts he didn't need. The silence in our house grew heavier. I filled my days with volunteering. I worked at the library twice a week. I joined a book club. I took up watercolor painting, finally, at the community center. I made friends. Real friends. Women who asked me questions and listened to my answers. Women who saw me. And slowly, carefully, I started to see myself too. One of those friends was Margaret, a widow 10 years older than me, with silver hair and a laugh like wind chimes. She'd been married for 40 years to a man she clearly adored, and she spoke about him with such tenderness that it made my chest ache. That's what I thought marriage was supposed to be. Partnership, companionship, love that grew deeper instead of disappearing. "Catherine," she said to me one day while we were painting together, "why do you stay?" I looked up from my canvas, startled. "What?" "With Robert," she said gently. "I've known you 3 years now, and I've never once heard you talk about him the way a woman talks about a man she loves. You talk about him the way you talk about a landlord. So why do you stay?" I didn't have a good answer. "Because I made a vow," I said finally, "for better or worse." Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Honey, there's a difference between honoring a vow and serving a life sentence." Those words stayed with me, burrowed deep, and took root. I was 54 years old. I'd been married for 32 years. And I couldn't remember the last time my husband had looked at me with genuine interest, the last time he'd asked me about my day and really wanted to know, the last time he touched my hand just because. I'd spent 32 years being faithful, being patient, being present, waiting for him to notice me, to choose me, to love me the way I needed to be loved. But Robert was never going to change. This was who he was, a good man in many ways, but not the right man for me. And I finally understood that staying wasn't noble. It was just slow suffocation. I spent 6 months thinking about it, praying about it, terrifying myself with it. The idea of leaving felt impossible. Women my age didn't start over. We made do. We endured. That's what our mothers taught us. But I kept thinking about Margaret's words, about the difference between a vow and a sentence. At night, lying beside him, I'd think about all the years I'd spent trying to be enough, trying to be the perfect wife, cooking his favorite foods, keeping the house exactly how he liked it, supporting his decisions, biting back my own needs and wants and dreams until I'd almost forgotten I had any. And for what? For a man who treated me like part of the furniture? I grew angry, which surprised me. I'd been sad for so long that I'd forgotten what anger felt like. But it was there, burning quiet and steady like a candle that wouldn't go out. Not rage, just this deep, persistent anger at all the wasted time. All the times I'd made myself smaller so he could be comfortable. I started going to a counselor. I found her name in the phone book, called from the library on my break, scheduled appointments for my days off. I told Robert I was having lunch with Margaret. I don't know if he believed me. He didn't ask enough questions for me to tell. Her name was Dr. Patricia Hollis, and she was maybe 40, with kind eyes and a way of listening that made me feel like every word I said mattered. In her office, which smelled like lavender and had soft gray walls, I cried more than I'd cried in the previous 10 years combined. "Do you love him?" she asked me during our third session. I sat with that question for a long time. I love who I thought he was, or who I hoped he could be. But the man he actually is, I don't think I even know him. And I don't think he knows me either. "Does that make you sad?" I said, "It makes me tired." And it was true. I was so tired. Dr. Hollis helped me understand that my feelings were valid, that wanting more from a marriage than just coexistence wasn't selfish, that I had tried, had communicated, had given 32 years of effort to a man who hadn't met me halfway. "What do you want, Catherine?" she asked me. "I want to be seen," I thought. "I want to wake up and feel like my life is mine. I want to stop disappearing." But saying it out loud felt dangerous, like if I named it, I'd have to do something about it. Spring turned to summer. I kept working at the library, kept seeing Dr. Hollis, kept putting money in my secret account. I started looking at apartment listings in the newspaper, just looking, not seriously, just to see what was out there. Small places I could afford on my library salary, a life that would be mine. The idea terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. Jennifer called on Sunday in July. She was pregnant with her second child, due in November. She was happy, glowing through the phone line, and I was genuinely thrilled for her. But then she started talking about David, her husband, and how he'd surprised her with the weekend trip for their anniversary, and how he'd been taking over the housework because the pregnancy exhausted her, and I had to excuse myself and cry in the bathroom. That's what partnership looked like. That's what I'd never had. I made the mistake of trying one more time with Robert, one last attempt to bridge the canyon between us. It was our anniversary in August, 32 years. I made reservations at the nice Italian restaurant downtown, the one we'd gone to on our 10th anniversary. I bought a new dress, blue, Robert's favorite color on me, or at least it had been once. I got my hair done. I wanted to feel pretty, to feel seen. I told him about the reservation a week in advance, reminded him the day before. He said, "Okay, Kath, sounds good." I should have known better. I got dressed that evening, put on the pearl earrings my mother had left me, even dabbed on perfume. I came downstairs at 6:15 for our 6:30 reservation. Robert was in his recliner, in his work clothes, watching a baseball game. "Robert," I said, "we need to leave in 10 minutes. He looked up, confused. "Leave for what?" My stomach dropped. "Our anniversary dinner. I told you. I made reservations." He had the grace to look sheepish at least. "Oh, Kath, I forgot. The game's in the 9th inning. Can we go tomorrow instead?" I stood there, in my new blue dress and my mother's pearls, and something inside me just broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet snap, like a thread pulled too tight. "No," I said. "We can't." I went to the restaurant alone, sat at the table for two, by myself, ordered the chicken piccata and a glass of wine. The waiter looked at me with such pity that I almost left, but I didn't. I stayed. I ate my meal slowly, deliberately,
tasting every bite. It was delicious. And I decided right there, between the salad and the dessert menu, that I was done. Done waiting, done hoping, done disappearing. When I got home, Robert was still in his recliner. The game was over. He was watching the news. "How was dinner?" he asked, not looking away from the television. "It was good," I said, and I went upstairs to our bedroom, took off the blue dress, and hung it in the very back of the closet where I'd never have to look at it again. I told Margaret the next day. We were at the library restocking shelves, and I just said it. "I'm going to leave him." She didn't look surprised. She just hugged me right there in the fiction section and said, "Good. It's about damn time." "I'm scared," I admitted. "Of course you are. Brave and scared aren't opposites, honey. They're partners." I started making real plans then. I found an apartment, a one-bedroom on the third floor of an older building downtown with hardwood floors and big windows that faced east. The morning light was beautiful. I put down a deposit using money from my secret account. I signed a lease that started October 1st. I had 2 months to figure out how to tell my husband I was leaving.
I told the kids first. That was its own special kind of hard. Jennifer came down for a visit in late August, 7 months pregnant and beautiful. We sat in my kitchen over tea, and I told her. I tried to explain the loneliness, the invisibility, the decades of trying. I told her I'd done everything I could, but I couldn't keep living a half-life. She cried. That broke my heart. "But you and Dad always seemed fine," she said. "You never fought." "No," I agreed. "We never fought. We never did much of anything." "Does he know?" "Not yet." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I thought that's just what marriage was. Comfortable, quiet, like you and Dad." I took her hand. "Sweetheart, marriage should be more than just tolerating each other. You deserve more than that. You and David, you have something real. Don't ever settle for less than that." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" "I think so," I said. "For the first time in a very long time, I think I'm going to be okay." Michael was harder. I called him in Arizona, and he got angry. "You're breaking up the family," he said. "After all these years, for what?" "For myself," I said quietly. "I'm doing this for myself." He didn't understand. He said I was being selfish, said Dad had provided for us, been faithful, been there, said I should be grateful. That word, grateful, it stung more than anything else. As if I should be grateful for the bare minimum, grateful for being ignored, grateful for a marriage that had hollowed me out from the inside. "I hope you'll understand someday," I told him, "but even if you don't, I'm still going." He hung up on me. That hurt worse than I expected. September came with cool mornings and leaves starting to turn. My move-in date was 3 weeks away. I had been packing slowly, secretly, boxing up things Robert would never notice. My books, my art supplies, the photo albums from before we were married, pieces of myself I wanted to keep. I practiced what I'd say to him, wrote it down, crossed it out, rewrote it. How do you tell someone you've shared a life with that you're leaving, that you've been drowning beside them for years while they never noticed you were underwater? One evening in mid-September, I was boxing up some kitchen things. I had duplicates. items I'd been given at showers or bought myself over the years. And Robert came into the kitchen for a drink. He saw the box, saw the newspaper wrapping around my good mixing bowls. "What's all this?" he asked. My heart started pounding. This wasn't how I'd planned it. I wasn't ready, but I also couldn't lie. I was so tired of making myself smaller. "I'm packing," I said. He looked confused. Packing for what? I took a breath, set down the bowl I was holding, turned to face him. "Robert," I said, my voice shaking only a little, "I'm leaving. I've rented an apartment. I'm moving out on October 1st. His face got deep, like I spoke in another language. "Leaving? What do you mean, leaving?" "I mean, I'm leaving this marriage. I can't do this anymore. I've tried to tell you. I've tried for years, but you don't listen. You don't see me. And I can't keep living like this." He just stared at me. The silence went on for a long time. It hurt. "This is crazy, Catherine. You're being ridiculous. People our age don't just leave." "I'm not people. I'm me. And I'm leaving." He got angry then, which was rare for Robert. "After everything I've done for you, I've worked every day for 32 years. I've given you a good life, a good home. What more do you want?" "I want you to love me." The words burst out louder than I meant them. "Not just provide for me, not just exist next to me. I want you to actually love me, Robert, to care about what I think and feel, to notice when I'm in the room, to choose me, not just tolerate me." "He do love you," he said, but it sounded defensive, automatic. "No," I said sadly. "You love the idea of having a wife, but you don't love me. You don't even know me." His face got red. I told the kids first. That was its own special kind of hard. Jennifer came down for a visit in late August, 7 months pregnant and beautiful. We sat in my kitchen over tea, and I told her. I tried to explain the loneliness, the invisibility, the decades of trying. I told her I'd done everything I could, but I couldn't keep living a half-life. She cried. That broke my heart. "But you and Dad always seemed fine," she said. "You never fought." "No," I agreed. "We never fought. We never did much of anything." "Does he know?" "Not yet." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "The apartment was small, but it was mine." That first morning, I woke up in a bedroom where I'd chosen every detail. The pale yellow walls, the white eyelet curtains, the bed positioned so I could see the sunrise through those big east-facing windows. I made coffee in my own little kitchen, sat at my own little table, and watched the light change over the rooftops of downtown. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life. I'd gone from my parents' house to marriage without any in-between. And it felt like freedom. Those first few months were hard in ways I hadn't expected. I'd cry sometimes over the strangest things, cooking for one, only buying the groceries I liked, having no one to tell when something funny happened. Divorce at my age wasn't common, especially not in our town. People whispered. I lost some friends, church friends mostly, who thought I had abandoned my duty. But I also discovered who I was without Robert, without anyone's expectations weighing me down. I was a woman who liked her coffee strong and her mornings quiet. I was someone who could read for hours without interruption. I took painting classes at the community center and discovered I was actually pretty good. I let my hair grow longer than I'd worn it in years.
I bought clothes in colors I liked instead of colors Robert preferred. I started going to a different church, a smaller one across town where no one knew my story. I made new friends. I said yes to invitations, no clubs and painting groups and Saturday morning walks. I laughed more than I had in years. The divorce was finalized in the spring of 2002. Robert didn't contest it, didn't fight for me or for us. He just signed the papers. We split everything down the middle. He kept the house, I took half the savings. It was fair, I suppose, in the legal sense, but there's no fair way to divide 32 years. Jennifer came around eventually. She visited me in my apartment, saw me painting, saw me genuinely smile, and I think she started to understand. When her daughter was born that year, I was there. I held my grandbaby and felt nothing but joy, uncomplicated by sadness, for the first time in so long. Michael stayed angry for longer. He didn't visit. We talked on the phone maybe once a month, stiff conversations, where he asked if I was happy now, like it was an accusation. I told him I was. I hoped someday he'd understand that his mother deserved happiness too. The years passed the way they do when you're finally living instead of just enduring. I worked at the library, got promoted to full-time with benefits. I painted and sold a few pieces at local art shows. I traveled a little, nothing fancy, but I saw the ocean for the first time since I was a child. I stood on a beach in North Carolina and felt the sand between my toes and thought, I did this. I chose this life. I dated, though that felt strange at first. There was a kind man named Tom who took me to dinner a few times. We had pleasant conversations, but there was no spark, and we both knew it. That was okay. I learned I didn't need a man to feel complete. That was a gift I'd given myself. I heard about Robert sometimes through Jennifer. She said he was fine, still working, still in the house. He'd seemed confused by the divorce, she told me. Like he genuinely didn't understand what had happened. Like he thought I'd just wake up one day and come back. That should have made me sad, but it didn't. It just confirmed what I'd already known. He'd never really seen me at all. Years turned into a decade. I retired from the library at 65 with a small party and a cake. I became a regular volunteer there instead, leading children's reading hours. My hair went gray and I let it. I liked how it looked, silver and soft, pulled back in a loose bun. I earned every one of those gray hairs. Jennifer's children grew up calling my apartment Grandma's art house because I had paintings on every wall and always had supplies out for them to create with me. Michael finally softened around my 70th birthday. He called and apologized for being angry for so long, said his own marriage had gone through a rough patch and he'd finally understood why I'd left. That conversation healed something I didn't realize still hurt. I made peace with my past. I didn't hate Robert. I didn't wish him ill. I just released him. Released all of it. The resentment, the what-ifs, the years I'd lost. I couldn't get them back, so I chose to be grateful for the years I'd claimed instead. Margaret passed away when I was 71. I held her hand in the hospice room, and she smiled at me and said, "You did good, honey. You saved yourself." I carried those words like a blessing. I moved out of the apartment when I was 73. 3 floors of stairs were getting harder, and I wanted something simpler. I found a little cottage on the edge of town, 1 bedroom, a porch with a swing, a yard where I could plant a garden. It was perfect, exactly right for this phase of my life. I planted tomatoes and herbs and flowers. I painted in the mornings when the light was best. I had friends over for tea. I video called with my grandchildren. I lived a quiet, full, contented life. 20 years after I'd left that house on Maple Street, I rarely thought about Robert at all. He was a chapter in my story, but not the whole book, not even the most important chapter anymore. And then one Tuesday afternoon in October, he showed up on my porch. I'd been in the garden, deadheading the last of the season's roses. My hands were dirty and I was wearing old jeans and a flannel shirt. My hair was coming loose from its bun. I heard footsteps on the gravel path and looked up. At first, I didn't recognize him. He was 79 now, thin in a way that looked fragile, his hair completely white. He moved slowly, carefully, like someone who'd been sick, and he was holding flowers, daisies, yellow and white, wrapped in paper from the grocery store. He said, "Catherine," and his voice cracked. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. "Robert?" We stared at each other across 20 years and a lifetime of changes. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt a strange sort of curiosity, like seeing someone from a dream you'd mostly forgotten. "Can we talk?" he asked. I almost said no. I could have. I had every right. But something in his face, something broken and desperate, made me nod. "All right." We sat on my porch in the 2 rocking chairs I'd bought at an estate sale. I didn't invite him inside. That felt too intimate somehow. This man was a stranger now. A familiar stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. He sat there for a long moment, holding those daisies, staring at his hands. Then he started talking. He said, "I had a heart attack 3 months ago. Had to have surgery. Spent a week in the hospital and another month recovering." He paused. I thought I was going to die. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. He continued, "Jennifer came to stay with me. She took care of me, cooked my meals, made sure I took my medicine. She was—" He swallowed hard. "She was so kind, so patient. And one night she was helping me get to bed, and she said something. She said, 'You know, Dad, this is what Mom did for you for 32 years, and you never once thanked her.'"
His voice broke on those last words. "It hit me like a truck," he said. "All of it. Everything I'd never noticed, never appreciated. I started thinking about our marriage, really thinking about it for the first time, and I realized—" He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "I realized I took you for granted. For 32 years, you were there, and I never saw you. Not really. I thought providing was enough. I thought showing up was enough. But it wasn't, was it?" "No," I said quietly, "it wasn't. I've spent the last 3 months thinking about all the ways I failed you," he said. "All the times you tried to talk to me and I didn't listen. All the moments you needed me and I was watching television or reading the paper or just somewhere else. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." He held out the daisies with shaking hands. "I know it's too late. I know I have no right to even be here, but I needed to tell you. I was wrong about everything. I'm so sorry, Catherine. I'm so, so sorry." I looked at those flowers, wilting slightly in the October afternoon. I looked at this old man finally saying the words I desperately needed to hear decades ago. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even sadness. Just a quiet, settled peace. "Robert," I said gently, "do you know when I needed to hear this?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. 20 years ago. 30 years ago. I know. I spent so many years waiting for you to see me, waiting for you to choose me, to love me the way I needed to be loved. I made myself small and quiet and convenient, thinking that if I was just patient enough, just good enough, you'd finally notice me. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. But the problem was never that I wasn't enough. The problem was that you weren't paying attention. And I can't get those years back, Robert. I can't undo all that loneliness, all that waiting. "I know," he whispered. "I know I can't fix it. I needed you to know that I finally understand, that you were right, about all of it." "Why now?" I asked. "Why come here now, after all these years?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm dying," he finally said. "The heart attack damaged things. The doctors say I have maybe a year, maybe less. And I couldn't die without telling you the truth, without admitting that you deserved better, that I should have been better." There it was. The confession, the regret, everything I'd wanted so desperately once upon a time. And it didn't change anything. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. "I forgave you a long time ago, Robert. Not because you apologized. You didn't. But because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting you to get sick. I let it go. I let all of it go." "Are you happy?" he asked, his voice small. I looked around at my little cottage, my garden, my porch, my life that I'd built from scratch. "Yes, I really am." He nodded slowly. "Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy." We sat there in silence for a while, rocking gently in our chairs. The afternoon sun filtered through the trees, warm and golden. Somewhere down the street, children were laughing. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "I want you to know that. I don't hate you, and I don't regret leaving. Both things are true." He understood. "I hope you find peace in whatever time you have left. I really do." He stood up slowly, painfully, and set the daisies on the small table between our chairs. "Thank you for listening," he said. "That's more than I deserved." I stood too. For a moment, I thought he might try to hug me, but he didn't. He just looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time ever, and nodded. "Goodbye, Catherine. Goodbye, Robert." I watched him walk slowly back to his car, an old sedan I didn't recognize. Watched him drive away. Then I picked up the daisies and went inside. I put them in a vase with water because they were pretty and it seemed wasteful not to. But I put them in the kitchen, not somewhere I'd see them constantly. They were just flowers. His apology was just words. And I was just fine. That night, I called Jennifer. "Your dad came to see me today," I said. "I know," she said. "He told me he was going to. Mom, I'm sorry if—" "I don't apologize," I interrupted gently. "It's okay. He said what he needed to say. And I'm glad he did, in a way. But honey, I need you to understand something. His apology doesn't change what I chose. It doesn't make me regret leaving. It just confirms that I made the right decision." "I know," she said softly. "I told him that too. I told him that you didn't need him anymore, that you'd built a whole beautiful life without him. I think that's what really broke his heart, realizing you didn't need his regret to be okay." "Are you all right?" I asked her, with all of this. "I think so," she said. "It's sad seeing him like this, knowing he's dying. But Mom, you gave him 32 years. You don't owe him your next 22. Her words made my eyes well up. "When did you get so wise?" She said, "I learned from my mother, the woman who taught me that it's never too late to choose yourself." After we hung up, I sat on my porch as the sun set, watching the sky turn pink and orange and purple. I thought about Robert, about his regret, about the years we'd shared and the years we hadn't. His apology had come 20 years too late, but maybe in some strange way, that was perfect,
Because 20 years ago, I might have taken him back. I might have convinced myself that his regret was enough, that his sudden awareness meant things could change. But now I knew better. Now I knew that my life without him was fuller and richer than my life with him had ever been.
I didn't need his regret. I'd already forgiven him. And more importantly, I'd forgiven myself for staying too long, for making myself small, for all the years I'd believed his neglect was somehow my fault. I was free, had been free for 20 years, and his late-arriving remorse couldn't touch that. The daisies lasted about a week before they wilted. I threw them in the compost heap and didn't think about them again. The weeks after Robert's visit were strange, but not in the way I expected. I thought seeing him might unsettle me, might bring back old hurts or stir up emotions I'd put to rest. But instead, it did the opposite. It confirmed something I'd already known deep in my bones. I'd made the right choice, not just in leaving, but in every choice I'd made since. I went about my life exactly as I had before. I painted in the mornings. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I had my book club on Wednesday evenings. I tended my garden. I called my grandchildren. I lived. But I did find myself thinking more about the journey, about the woman I'd been and the woman I'd become. There's something about someone apologizing for hurting you that makes you look back at the hurt with clearer eyes. I pulled out old photo albums one evening, something I hadn't done in years. There I was on my wedding day, 23 years old, smiling in my mother's altered dress. I looked so young, so hopeful, so certain that love and commitment were the same thing. They were pictures from those early years, me holding baby Jennifer, Robert standing beside me, but somehow separate, even in the photographs. Family Christmases where I was always the one in the middle, holding everyone together. Vacations where I'd ask strangers to take our picture so we'd have proof we were happy. I studied Robert's face in those old photos. He looked the same in almost all of them, pleasant but distant, there but not present. I'd spent so many years thinking something was wrong with me, that I wasn't interesting enough or pretty enough or something enough to hold his attention. But looking at those pictures now, with decades of distance and hard-won wisdom, I could see the truth. It was never about me. Robert had been emotionally unavailable from the start, shut down in some fundamental way. Maybe Vietnam did that to him. Maybe his own father had taught him that men don't engage, don't feel, don't connect. Maybe it was just who he was. It didn't matter anymore. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to let them keep doing it. I put the albums away and made myself a cup of tea, sat on my porch in the cool November evening, and wrapped myself in the quilt I'd made 2 winters ago, a patchwork of fabrics from clothes I'd worn throughout my new life. Each square was a memory, a choice, a moment of freedom. Margaret's voice came back to me, as it often did. There's a difference between honoring a vow and serving a life sentence. I'd served my time. I'd honored my commitments until they were slowly killing me. And then I'd chosen life instead. That wasn't failure. That was survival. Jennifer called a few days later. "Dad's in the hospital again," she said. She sounded tired. "Another heart episode. They're not sure how long he has." "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said. And I meant it. Not for myself, but for her. Watching a parent die is hard, no matter what the relationship was. "Do you want to see him?" she asked carefully. "No," I said gently. "We said what we needed to say. But I'm here for you, whatever you need. Thank you, she whispered. I wasn't sure if I should even tell you. Of course you should. He's your father. You love him. That's separate from my story with him. She was quiet for a moment. You're amazing, you know that. I don't think I could be so gracious. You get there. Time and distance and building a life you love makes forgiveness easier. I don't forgive him because he deserves it. I forgive him because I deserve peace. Robert died 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Jennifer called early in the morning. He'd gone in his sleep, she said, peacefully. He was 79 years old. I sat with the news for a while, tried to find sadness, but it wasn't there. What I felt was more complicated, a kind of melancholy for what never was, mixed with relief that his suffering was over, topped with gratitude that my life had gone on without him. Are you okay, Mom? Jennifer asked. I am, I said truthfully. Are you? She cried then, and I let her. Listened while she talked about the complicated grief of losing a parent she loved, but never quite understood. A parent who had been present, but absent at the same time. I knew that feeling intimately. It's okay to grieve him and be angry at him at the same time, I told her. Feelings aren't single file. They pile up all together. Will you come to the funeral? She asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, I said finally. I'll be there for you. But I'm coming as your mother, not as his widow. The funeral was on a gray November day that threatened rain. It was held at the church where Robert and I had married 54 years earlier. I sat in the back, not with the family. I wore a navy blue dress, not black. I wasn't mourning a husband. I was supporting my daughter. The service was short. The pastor said nice things about Robert's work ethic and reliability. His brothers spoke about their childhood. Jennifer got up and read a poem, her voice shaking. Michael flew in from Arizona and gave a eulogy about a father who had provided, but never really connected. Listening to Michael Koch, I heard my own story reflected back. He was a good man, but I don't think he knew how to show love, just how to show up. That summed it up perfectly. Afterwards, at the reception at the church hall, a few people came up to me, some of Robert's old coworkers who remembered me, a neighbor from Maple Street. They seemed surprised to see me there. I didn't know you kept in touch, one of them said, nosy and inappropriate. I didn't, I said pleasantly. But Jennifer's my daughter. I came for her. Robert's brother approached me with less than friendly eyes. You've got some nerve showing up here, he said quietly. I'm here for my children, I said calmly, not for your judgment. He started to say something else, but Jennifer appeared at my elbow. Uncle Frank, she said firmly, Mom is welcome here. If you have a problem with that, you can leave. He huffed and walked away. Jennifer squeezed my hand. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Always, I said. I'm always here for you. I left before the reception ended, hugged my children, kissed my grandchildren, and drove back to my cottage, back to my life. That evening, as I watered my plants and made myself dinner, I realized I felt lighter. Robert's death had closed a chapter I didn't even realize was still slightly open. Now it was finished, complete, done. I was 74 years old, fully, completely, entirely my own person. The holidays came and went. Jennifer and her family came to my cottage for Christmas Eve. Michael and his family joined us via video call. We laughed and ate too much and exchanged. Robert's brother approached me with less than friendly eyes. You got some nerve showing up here, he said quietly.
I'm here for my children, I said calmly, not for your judgment. He started to say something else, but Jennifer appeared at my elbow. Uncle Frank, she said firmly, Mom is welcome here. If you have a problem with that, you can leave. He huffed and walked away. Jennifer squeezed my hand. Thank you for coming, she whispered. Always, I said. I'm always here for you. I left before the reception ended, hugged my children, kissed my grandchildren, and drove back to my cottage, back to my life. That evening, as I watered my plants and made myself dinner, I realized I felt lighter. Robert's death had closed a chapter I didn't even realize was still slightly open. Now it was finished, complete, done. I was 74 years old, fully, completely, entirely my own person. The holidays came and went. Jennifer and her family came to my cottage for Christmas Eve. Michael and his family joined us via video call. We laughed and ate too much and exchanged gifts. Not once did we mention Robert. His absence wasn't a wound anymore. It was just a fact. Winter melted into spring. I planted my garden again. Tomatoes and peppers and herbs, flowers along the path. I took a watercolor workshop at the community center and learned new techniques. I joined a walking group with other women my age, and we met 3 mornings a week to walk through the park. One of those women, Dorothea, became a good friend. She was 76, divorced 30 years, with white curls and a laugh that could light up a room. We had coffee after our walks sometimes, sitting at the little cafe downtown. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said one morning in April. "Of course. Do you ever regret it, leaving your marriage?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Not once," I said. "Not even for a minute. I only regret not doing it sooner." "I feel the same way," she said, smiling. "But people always ask, don't they? Like we're supposed to regret choosing ourselves." Women my age weren't taught that we were allowed to choose ourselves. We were taught to sacrifice, to endure, to make everyone else happy, even if it meant making ourselves miserable. "But you didn't," Dorothea said. "Not forever," I agreed. "It took me 54 years, but I finally figured it out." She raised her coffee cup. "To figuring it out, better late than never." I clinked my cup against hers. Better late than never. As spring deepened into summer, I found myself reflecting more on the lessons I'd learned, not just about marriage, but about life, about self-worth, about the difference between being alone and being lonely. I'd been lonely in my marriage, desperately, achingly lonely, surrounded by family and obligations and still feeling invisible. But now, living alone, I wasn't lonely at all. I was full. My days were full of purpose and connection and joy. I had friends who really knew me. I had hobbies that fed my soul. I had grandchildren who visited and laughed in my kitchen and made messes with my paints. I had myself. And I'd learned that was enough. One afternoon in June, I was painting on my porch when a young woman walked up my path. She was maybe 35, with tired eyes and a forced smile. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm your new neighbor. I just moved into the blue house at the corner. Someone at the community center said you might give painting lessons." "I do, sometimes. Are you interested?" She nodded, then burst into tears. I'm so sorry. I just left my husband. I moved here to start over, and I don't know anyone, and I thought maybe painting would help me feel like myself again, and—" "Come sit," I interrupted gently, gesturing to the other rocking chair. "What's your name?" "Amanda," she said, wiping her eyes. I got her a glass of water and a tissue, let her cry a bit. Then I said, "How long were you married?" 12 years. He wasn't abusive or anything. He never saw me. I was so lonely, and everyone said I should be grateful, that he was a good provider. But I felt like I was disappearing. She looked at me with desperate eyes. Does that make sense? Am I crazy? You're not crazy, I said firmly. You're not even a little bit crazy, and you're not alone. I told her my story. Not all of it, we just met, but enough. Enough for her to know that I understood, that I'd been where she was, that it gets better. You left at 35? I said. That's 12 years earlier than I did. Good for you. You've got so much life ahead of you. But I'm scared, she admitted. Everyone's judging me. My family's disappointed, my friends from church won't talk to me, and I keep wondering if I made a mistake. Are you happier now than you were 6 months ago? She thought about it. Yes, she said slowly, even though everything's hard and uncertain. Yes, I can breathe again. Then you didn't make a mistake, I said firmly. You made a choice, and choosing yourself is never wrong. We talked for over an hour. I told her about the loneliness that comes before the peace, about the judgment and the doubt and the fear, but also about the joy on the other side, the freedom, the rediscovering of yourself.
When she left, she hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "I needed to know it gets better." It does, I promised. It really, really does. After she left, I sat on my porch and cried a little. Happy tears mostly, because that girl, that brave, scared, strong girl, she reminded me of who I'd been, and I got to tell her what I wished someone had told me. You're going to be okay, better than okay. Robert's regret came 20 years too late, but the truth is, even if it had come 10 years too late, or 5, or even 1, it still would have been too late. Because the moment I chose myself, the moment I walked through that door into my own life, I closed something behind me that couldn't be reopened. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation and hard-won peace. I don't tell you this story to make you feel sorry for me. I don't need pity. I tell you this story because I know in my bones that someone listening needs to hear it. Maybe you're in a marriage that looks fine from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. Maybe you've been making yourself smaller for years, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for things to change. Maybe you're lonely in a house full of people. Maybe you've forgotten who you are underneath all the roles you play. If that's you, I want you to hear this. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself. I was 54 when I left, 54 years old, with no career, limited savings, and a community that judged me. And I made it, more than made it. I thrived. I found joy and purpose and genuine happiness on the other side of that scary choice. But I also want you to know that leaving isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is staying and setting boundaries. Sometimes it's counseling that actually works because both people show up for it. Sometimes it's rediscovering each other after the kids are grown. The point isn't whether you stay or go. The point is that you matter. Your happiness matters. Your needs matter. You are not selfish for wanting to be seen and loved and chosen. You are not asking for too much when you ask to be treated like you matter. And if someone can't give you that, if you've asked and communicated and tried and they still can't or won't see you, then you have a choice to make. Stay and accept that this is what it is, or go and discover who you are without them. Both choices are valid. Both choices are hard, but only you know which one you can live with. I look at my life now, my painting classes, my garden, my friends, my grandchildren who visit and fill my home with laughter, my quiet mornings and peaceful evenings, and I feel rich. Not in money, though I get by just fine, but rich in the ways that actually matter.
rich in freedom, rich in authentic connection, rich in self-knowledge and hard-won peace. Would I have preferred if Robert had seen me 30 years ago? If he'd chosen to really love me, to know me, to build a genuine partnership? Of course I would have. That would have been easier. That would have hurt less. But that's not the story I got. And I've made peace with that. My story is one of late blooming, of finding myself at 54 and continuing to grow and change and discover new things at 76, of learning that it's never too late to start honoring yourself. Some regrets come too late, but some beginnings come right on time, even if that time is later than you hoped. I wouldn't trade these 24 years for anything. Not for an easier path, not for social approval, not for the comfort of staying in a cage that looked like a home. I am free. I am whole. I am exactly who I was always meant to be. And if my story can help even one woman find the courage to choose herself, whether that means leaving or staying with new boundaries or just finally admitting that her feelings matter, then every hard moment was worth it. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to take up space in your own life. Don't wait 20 years for someone else to figure that out. Don't wait for permission that might never come. Don't wait for an apology that comes too late to matter. Choose yourself now, today, in whatever way that means for you. Your life is waiting, and it's more beautiful than you can imagine.
20 years too late. But the truth is, even if it had come 10 years too late, or 5, or even 1, it still would have been too late. Because the moment I chose myself, the moment I walked through that door into my own life, I closed something behind me that couldn't be reopened. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation and hard-won peace. I don't tell you this story to make you feel sorry for me. I don't need pity. I tell you this story because I know in my bones that someone listening needs to hear it. Maybe you're in a marriage that looks fine from the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Maybe you've been making yourself smaller for years, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for things to change. Maybe you're lonely in a house full of people. Maybe you've forgotten who you are underneath all the roles you play. If that's you, I want you to hear this. It's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself. I was 54 when I left, 54 years old with no career, limited savings, and a community that judged me. And I made it, more than made it. I thrived. I found joy and purpose and genuine happiness on the other side of that scary choice. But I also want you to know that leaving isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is staying and setting boundaries. Sometimes it's counseling that actually works because both people show up for it. Sometimes it's rediscovering each other after the kids are grown. The point isn't whether you stay or go. The point is that you matter. Your happiness matters. Your needs matter. You are not selfish for wanting to be seen and loved and chosen. You are not asking for too much when you ask to be treated like you matter. And if someone can't give you that, if you've asked and communicated and tried and they still can't or won't see you, then you have a choice to make. Stay and accept that this is what it is, or go and discover who you are without them. Both choices are valid. Both choices are hard, but only you know which one you can live with. I look at my life now,
My painting classes, my garden, my friends, my grandchildren who visit and fill my home with laughter, my quiet mornings and peaceful evenings. And I feel rich, not in money, though I get by just fine, but rich in the ways that actually matter. Rich in freedom, rich in authentic connection, rich in self-knowledge and hard-won peace. Would I have preferred if Robert had seen me 30 years ago? If he'd chosen to really love me, to know me, to build a genuine partnership? Of course, that would have been easier. That would have hurt less. But that's not the story I got, and I've made peace with that. My story is one of late blooming, of finding myself at 54 and continuing to grow and change and discover new things at 76, of learning that it's never too late to start honoring yourself. Some regrets come too late, but some beginnings come right on time, even if that time is later than you hoped. I wouldn't trade these 24 years for anything. Not for an easier path, not for social approval, not for the comfort of staying in a cage that looked like a home. I am free. I am whole. I am exactly who I was always meant to be. And if my story can help even one woman find the courage to choose herself, whether that means leaving or staying with new boundaries or just finally admitting that her feelings matter, then every hard moment was worth it. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to take up space in your own life. Don't wait 20 years for someone else to figure that out. Don't wait for permission that might never come. Don't wait for an apology that arrives too late to matter. Choose yourself now, today, in whatever way that means for you. Your life is waiting, and it's more beautiful than you can imagine. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it touched something in your heart the way telling it has touched mine. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty to someone else and loyalty to yourself? Have you ever received an apology that came too late to change anything? Or maybe you're standing at that crossroads right now, trying to decide which path to take. Tell me in the comments. What story should I share next? What truth do you need to hear? And remember, sweet sister, it's never too late to bloom.